The overdose crisis in America continues to get worse. More than 100,000 people died from drug overdoses in the year ending in April of 2021, the most of any year on record. There is a nationwide effort to fight this epidemic by engaging an influential group in America, faith leaders. This story begins with one man's years-long journey from the crack house to the pulpit. The journey of one's life is impossible to quantify or measure.
But this talk tonight, well, tonight just might be unique.
In the case of William Cope Moyers, one defining distance is 5 miles.
There is nothing more I can do for you, my father said. I'm finished.
What happened 5 miles from this Atlanta church pulpit is the reason Moyers is here.
I grew up in a church. My father's an ordained Southern Baptist minister. And when I was born in 1959 in Fort Worth, Texas, my father was in seminary. And he and my mother, at the age of 21 or 24, 25, they were pastoring a small church. And so I'm a man of faith.
I'm Bill Moyers.
Moyers' Baptist minister father was the legendary journalist and author Bill Moyers, who also served as press secretary for President Lyndon B. Johnson.
We never talked about this in my family. We didn't think we needed to. We talked about the war in Vietnam, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, OPEC and long gas lines, faith, the birds and the bees. We didn't talk about substances because we didn't think we needed to.
Moyers started smoking marijuana as a teenager.
I smoked it because it was offered to me. I didn't smoke it to get high or to end up in a crack house. I smoked it because I was a teenager and teenagers take risks, and I didn't think anything was wrong with that. And I smoked marijuana and I liked it. I liked what it did for me. It made me feel good. It took care of what I call this hole in my soul, this place that for me aches with a sense of imperfection.
Moyers says he went from abusive drinking to full-blown addiction in college, and drugs followed.
It just consumed me. And I went to treatment 4 times over 5 years between 1989 and 1994. That's how difficult it was for me to come to terms with the fact that to recover I needed to embrace all of the things that were wrong with me, not just my using.
Moyers followed his father into journalism, a rising young producer at CNN in Atlanta. Married with 2 little boys, 3 years into recovery, the pull of the drugs dragged him from the life he had built.
I'm dying inside because I'm not doing the things that are important to tend to the garden of my recovery. I'm just getting on with my life. But I'm running harder and harder and looking good and doing all that stuff and succeeding and climbing the ladder at CNN. I finally went to the corner of Boulevard and Ponce de Leon because I just couldn't imagine living my life the way I was living it anymore, and I just wanted to sort of check out. And for me, checking out was about getting high, and then checking out was about dying. So I was holed up in that crack house from October the 8th to October the 12th, and I knew that I was not doing a very good job of hiding out because there was a lot of whispering in the neighborhood about the white guy, and I stood out like a sore thumb in that neighborhood. I have 2 distinct memories. One is of being here as in deep trouble. I got back in the car.
We returned with Moyers to the crack house.
No one would ever believe that. So
now an apartment building.
That was it right there.
It's only the 2nd time he's been here in 27 years. Moyers' bosses at CNN and his family searched for him, and after 4 days, they found him.
And I remember walking out that front door. Deputy sheriff showed up at the door. They banged on the door. They said, "We want the white guy, just the white guy." And when I couldn't answer the question, now what am I going to do? Multiple relapses, multiple treatments, the gig is up, right? I opened the door, and I was delivered. I walked out of there. What I will never forget was leaving behind the other 8 people in that crack house.
It was not an end that day. It was the beginning of a recovery journey that has lasted 27 years, in which Moyers has become a best-selling author and a national recovery expert. In his role as vice president at Hazelden Betty Ford, a renowned addiction treatment and advocacy organization, he reconnected to his Georgia roots, helping create the Addiction Alliance of Georgia, a unique statewide treatment, research, and education partnership led by Emory University and Hazelden Betty Ford.
I've come home, and I feel right at home.
It is 5 miles from another lifetime to the pulpit at Peachtree Road United Methodist Church.
I'm a prime example of the fact that addiction does not discriminate.
From the pulpit is how Moyers also believes we can fight back against an epidemic that has claimed a record number of lives, that faith leaders can be the game changers, the lifesavers.
It's okay. You're not alone.
A group is coming together to train and educate members of the clergy on how to help their parishioners.
Carol Pine's life goal was not to get in front of TV news cameras.
Now, they don't have to become treatment counselors.
But this career business journalist realized her own story was one that could be used to affect change.
When I was struggling in my disease of alcoholism, had I known or observed that my pastor had created a safe place for me to come talk to him, in that case, about what was troubling me, I would have sought him out.
We are a Jewish center located here in town, Atlanta, and we source everything to the Torah. Jeff was a wonderful person. He was studying at Georgia State College, was in recovery, unbeknownst to us.
When Rabbi Eliyahu Schusterman lost a member of Chabad in town to an overdose, his life and mission changed.
The mission of Chabad is to promote godliness and goodness in the world.
In the basement of Chabad in town is now Jeff's place.
We have AA meetings and other 12-step meetings that take place here on a weekly basis. For example, we have a Narcan training coming up, which is a critical tool in saving lives of people who are in an opioid crisis.
Welcome. My name is Carol Pine.
In Savannah, Pine co-founded the Interfaith Addiction and Recovery Coalition to train and educate faith leaders.
I believe that in order for faith leaders to have an impact, they have to be able to speak out loud from the pulpit about this subject. And in order to speak out loud, they have to be educated.
Nearly 1 in 3 people who attend religious services are either struggling with addiction or love someone who is. Only 12% of faith leaders in this country learn anything about addiction and recovery in seminary or religious study.
We are up against the reality that we've lost over 101,000 lives in a 12-month period.
Chris Thrasher is the Director of Substance Use Disorders and Recovery at the Clinton Foundation.
When someone has a problem with a substance use disorder, they more often go to their faith leader than their physician, than a family member, a friend. They're going to their faith leaders. And here's the thing, faith leaders are not getting this in theology school or in seminary. They're not getting the training, but yet we look at them as being authorities in this area. So what we thought was, let's go all in on training our faith leaders.
This is real. This epidemic is real.
This is a group uniquely positioned to remove the stigma of addiction and to connect their congregants to care. The Clinton Foundation has trained faith leaders in Houston, Texas, Jacksonville, Florida, Little Rock, Arkansas, and throughout Georgia.
I felt that this was an opportunity that I've been waiting on.
Faith leaders get an education on the science of addiction and, in addition to praying with families, can help them take action.
This is something really worth the effort and time.
Connecting them to help in their community.
And we have a simple, singular mission.
Carol Pine and Rabbi Schusterman are among those who've been trained.
Because I think this story carries such a powerful message and guidance around the struggle of addiction. We spent 9 or 10 months learning about the opioid crisis, understanding its underpinnings, its history, and learning how faith leaders, who are the natural go-to for so many people who are struggling, how we can contribute to the solution. We need to bring the conversation around addiction being a disease as opposed to a moral failing into the conversation. We have to bring down that wall. We can't be afraid to talk about it. We can't be afraid to share our children's struggles, our own struggles, right? The more we can bring down those walls, the more the water flows both directions.
It's a model that can spread across the country with science and faith sharing the same goal: to stop losing people to a preventable disease, to show that recovery is possible.
Faith leaders are trusted messengers in their community.